What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another What Would You Think video. I'm Alvan, and today we'll be reviewing The Iron Claw.
Morning.
What do you want in life, Kevin Von Erich?
More ribs. I want to be with my family. You know, be with my brothers.
What do you like to do with your brothers?
Don't mind the setup, it's just me today. I got my notes for the movie, so if I look off screen, just keep in mind that I'm just looking at these notes. But yeah, so the movie is about the legendary Von Erich family and follows the brothers Kevin, David, Carrie, and Michael, and it kind of follows their wrestling career and shows the dynasty that they built, the curse that they cannot outrun, and the legacy that they left behind.
The Iron Claw is a true story about the Von Erich brothers, the biggest rock stars in wrestling to ever come out of Texas.
They were just godlike all over the world. They were like superheroes.
And this movie was directed by Sean Durkin, written by Sean Durkin, and it stars Zac Efron, Lily James, Holt McCallany, I think, Maura Tierney, Jeremy Allen White, Harris Dickinson, and Stanley Simon, I believe, was the youngest brother. So this movie was one of my most anticipated films of the year, and let me just say that it absolutely delivers. The script is so strong, there are great acting performances in it, and just the story surrounding the Von Erich family is something that I didn't know going into the movie. I've heard whispers of it, you know, there's people saying that it's a tragedy, but I just didn't know how tragic it was. And let me tell you, this movie is, what a way to close out 2023, because this is the last film that I saw in theaters in 2023, and it destroyed me. It absolutely wrecked me. I actually believe this is one of the rare movies this year where the writing is better than the acting. Sometimes the acting elevates the script, but this time the writing was so good that I kind of found some performances not lackluster, but they weren't up to par with how strong the script was. In my opinion, this movie should be nominated for Best Original Screenplay for all the award seasons coming up, because it was that good. I do want to watch this movie again, because when we went, we watched it with Ramadan, Omid, and Amir. We got decent seats, but it was kind of like a little bit of a last minute thing. So we got a little bit of the front row seat, so the whole time we were kind of looking up, like seated back, but that still kept me engaged for the whole 2 hours. And man, it was a great ride, I will say. Having not known what happens to the Von Erichs too much, I know that there's a tragedy, but after watching the movie, this was a gut punch. This is the saddest movie probably I've seen. I felt the same way coming out of this movie as I felt after watching The Whale, where it was just so like devastating, and it was such a heavy topic, but I think the heaviness of the topic didn't really detract from my enjoyment of it, because, you know, I read on interviews, I've seen the director and writer Sean Durkin talk about his approach to making this movie, and he called the Von Erich family kind of like a Greek tragedy.
One of the early things that happened in making this film and researching and looking at the family as a whole was that it was a sort of unthinkable Greek tragedy. And so in finding my way into the story, I really leaned on the traditions of Greek tragedy to really find the structure and to give myself a structure to tell the story. And one of those things is that bad news is delivered from off stage. And
it's instances and instances after one another of just unfortunate circumstances that follows this family, hence the Von Erich curse. And they really portray that really well in this movie. Starting, you know, I guess we're going into spoilers, but this is also a real life biopic, so I would highly recommend checking out this movie. But going into you know, the death of David and then Michael and then Carrie at the end, it was like a gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. It was unrelentless, and like I needed a break from it. But also there's a whole other brother that was cut out, or like wasn't even written for this movie. Chris Von Erich, I did some research into it. He also had a wrestling career, and Sean Durkin just decided not to include this brother in the movie because it would have made it even sadder including this brother in, because he died as well, you know, in another very tragic way. But there were really great performances throughout, and you know, each actor has their time to shine throughout the film. And the standout performances to me in particular were Zac Efron, who plays Kevin Von Erich, the eldest brother. There was an older brother above him, but he passed away when he was young. So yeah, Kevin Von Erich, Zac Efron was the strongest performance.
I know that over the course of training for the movie, I like, you know, it would keep me up at night, prepping for the role, and became almost an obsession. You know, I did become an obsession. While filming the movie, I didn't have to do much to feel as I imagine Kevin would have felt. It took over my physicality in a way that worked really well. So I'm grateful for it. It was really fun, and it really did help the performance.
As well as the dad, Fritz Von Erich, played by Holt McCallany, I believe that's how it's pronounced. And their dynamic, every single scene where it's Holt and Zach, Fritz and Kevin, I was glued to the screen the entire time.
I remember seeing a brief clip after Kevin Von Erich saw the film for the first time, and he said, I didn't think they'd be able to find an actor to play Fritz, but they found one, and that meant more to me than any review from any critic could have meant.
But also the dynamic with the brothers, the chemistry all of them had with each other, it really made it feel like they were brothers. And I commend that to Jeremy Allen White, Stanley Simon, and Harris Dickinson. Even though some of them have very minimal screen time, they really make their presence felt throughout the movie.
Every day we were still elevating, pushing each other, and there for one another, and you know, pumping each other up before takes and stuff like that. It really felt like we were creating this brotherhood dynamic. It was really special.
Now, there were things that didn't really work with me, but they're not like super apparent. I think the biggest issue for me is just kind of the vague timeline throughout this whole movie, because the only time that you see years come up is when the big title fights happen for the brothers. But you don't really get a sense of how long this curse was for the family. But that's probably the only complaint that I have. Everything was top notch. I think this is a great A24 film, and I think that's also another good thing that this movie does, is it builds anticipation and anxiety in a really effective way, because sometimes there's instances where you think something bad is going to happen, aka like you think someone's going to die, but then they don't die, and then it's another tragic thing that happens, but it just builds and builds and builds until the death happens of Michael and Carrie, right? You see these tragedies happen to them. You see Carrie gets his leg amputated. You see Michael get in a coma. But in the movie, when I was watching it, I thought they were just going to die. But the fact that, you know, they got a chance to anticipate that and build that until the death was really well done. The last 15 minutes, one of the most memorable movie endings that I've seen in a long time, when Carrie kills himself, and then you see Kevin find him, and then you see Kevin, you know, choke Fritz, and you see the rage in Zac Efron's eyes. It's so well done. And then immediately after, it hits you with that scene where Carrie sees his brothers in the afterlife, and you think it's a sweet scene, and then you hear Carrie say, "Where's my older brother Jackie?" And then you see the eldest Von Erich brother, Jack Jr., and he's just a 7-year-old child. And it has a lot of weight when you see that. And that is the moment where the movie was great, but it went to like fantastic level, in my opinion, when they actually illustrated just how young these brothers were when they were hit by the curse, right? They're the tragic lives of Von Erichs. And then after that, it goes to the farm scene with Kevin just sitting there and watching his boys, and you know, the catharsis of seeing Kevin cry for the first time, because they set it up in the very beginning when he's on his date with his wife, right, or his girlfriend at the time. She's like, oh, you know, you can tell that at that time that was probably the first time Kevin really reflected on his life and the loss of his brothers, when he's just sitting there and watching his sons, you kind of got that where he was like, okay, he got a chance to breathe out, like sigh of relief, and just let the emotion go over him. That scene really just shows the audience how tormented Kevin Von Erich was at that time, and Zac Efron portrays it excellently, right? That is a type of movie scene where you want to go back in the movies just to rewatch it for that scene. You want to pay admission just to rewatch the ending, because the build up throughout the movie, where every time you're at a funeral for one of the brothers, it has a close up of Kevin's face, but he's so stoic. He doesn't have any emotion. And then at the very end, when he's finally at peace, he then has a chance to reflect, and then it just starts coming. And then his sons come up to him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, boys." The line that killed me was, "I was once a brother, now I'm no longer a brother." That is such a great line, and that's why I really hope that this movie gets its recognition for the writing. And even just with the other brothers, all these brothers, it's really sad to see that they were passionate about one specific thing, but they had to put their passions aside because they wanted to do something. They wanted to please their father, right? So
there was a thing to play with in the whole family where it was like a duty that you're going to follow your father's and then your brother's footsteps into the ring.
The themes and the messages that this movie presents, I also resonated with, where it's kind of like you want to do one thing, your heart tells you to do one thing, but then another thing is like pulling you away from it. So you have to kind of reconcile with the fact, like, what should I do? In this instance of the movie, it's like, should I do what I want to do, or should I do what Dad wants me to do? And the fact that all the brothers chose to do what Dad wants, and then at the very end, Kevin is like, nope. Like when he starts laughing after the Ric Flair fight, that's when he realizes, like, oh, I need to get out of this fast, right? So the message of just kind of doing what you want to do versus what others think you should do was a really strong, resonating message for me.
And with Carrie and with Mike, there were other paths for them if things had gone differently. We always were trying to play those really subtly under the surface.
The idea of, I guess, putting aside fame and fortune to be happy was something that I thought about, and I was like, oh, that's probably something that I want to do, where these brothers, they were on the top of the world in the wrestling community, but you can tell that each one of them was unhappy with where they were, except for Kevin at the very end, when he's no longer wrestling but he's happy. And that really kind of showed to me that you don't really have to, you can be successful in other ways. Success doesn't equate to fame and fortune and like monetary value. Success comes from within rather than people telling you you're successful. And I think I really carried that. That's just something that I really related to. Someone who's like who's early in their career, where you want to move your way up, but also you want to still have some type of balance and some type of semblance of happiness, rather than just kind of chasing the paycheck. So all in all, this movie has so many pros that it outweighs any of the cons that I do have. And I think this might be one of the best movies I've seen in 2023. It's for sure in my top 5, and I do want to see it again. So going into my score, I would give it a 4.375 out of 5. I love this movie. It is a great movie. I highly recommend you watch this film. I hope this movie gets the recognition it deserves. That's been it for the review for The Iron Claw. And stay tuned to this channel where we will be doing our best and worst of 2023. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe. We do movie reviews, pop culture stuff, vlogs, just kind of lifestyle. This is a channel where, a bunch of friends just came together and just wanted to do some type of content. So if you like that, stay tuned, guys. See ya.
I want to thank God for all of it. I don't want to say thank you for the good days, because the other ones are the ones where I learned. You know, a man doesn't learn as much from winning as he does from losing.